Welcome back to Resilience Plus Rise, the space where we excavate the extraordinary from the heart of the challenge. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria, and if you're feeling the pull towards a deeper purpose, a more impactful legacy, beyond the peaks that you have already conquered, or still in the process of conquering, or the adversities, you're in the right place. Because just like 26.2 transformative miles, I explore in my now published book, I believe life's most significant chapters often begin where we dare to redefine our finish line. As I mentioned, it is now currently available. You can uh, check it out at resilienceRisemindset.com. Today, I am excited because we are shifting gears to examine a different type of strength, the power of slowing down. What I always believe about the pause. And the reason I connected with Carl Honoré was when he mentioned, or when it was his LinkedIn information said about slowing down, pausing. It reflected a very, very critical part of my own belief, which I take from Viktor Frankl, the space between the stimuli and the response. That's the space where we get our freedom. So, whether we call it as the choices we take for pausing or slowing down, the power of slowing down in a world obsessed with speed. Join me as we welcome the award winning writer, broadcaster, and two-time TED speaker, Carl Honoré, globally known as the leading evangelist or even the godfather of slow movement. Carl is here to challenge our perception of productivity and success. Get ready for the perspective shift that might just redefine your own finish line. Carl, welcome to Resilience Plus Rise.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Fantastic. So, this has been quite a bit of intrigue. And when I read about the power of slowing down in a world wherein we need to get things done, whether it is as soon as possible or get it done, people are just pursuing. How did this concept of or the power of pause or the slowness come into your being?
Well, for me, it all started with a personal existential crisis, if you like.
Okay.
If you go back a number of years, I was stuck in fast forward. Every moment of my day was a race against the clock. I just could not slow down. And the moment I realized that I just lost the plot completely was when I started reading bedtime stories to my son. And back in those days, I just couldn't put the brakes on. So I'd go into his room at the end of the day and speed read Snow White. Yeah. So I'd be skipping lines, paragraphs. I became an expert on what I call the multiple page turn technique, which I don't know. You try to smuggle 3 pages, but it never works. My son would always catch me and say, Daddy, why are there only 3 dwarves in the story? you know, what happened to Grumpy? And this lamentable state of affairs went on for some time until I caught myself flirting with a book I'd heard about called The 1 Minute Bedtime Story. So Snow White in 60 seconds. And I remember
Ah,
thinking, hallelujah, I need that book now from Amazon, drone delivery. But then it was light bulb over the head moment. And I suddenly thought, whoa, has it really come to this? Am I really in such a hurry that I'm prepared to fob off my little boy with a soundbite instead of a story at the end of the day? And it was like an out-of-body experience. I could just see myself there in sharp relief. And what I saw was ugly. It was unedifying. I was racing through my life instead of living it. And I thought at this point, I need to stop. Something has to change in a deep, radical way. And that thing was to slow down. And so that was for me the starting point when I began investigating not only my own addiction to speed and busyness and distraction, but everybody else's. and pretty soon uncovered what I've called, many people would now call the slow movement, right? The idea that that faster is not always better, and that sometimes it pays to slow down.
That's powerful because there are a couple of things which just came to my mind. Is one of the elements that I use in my podcast is our deepest of purpose comes from our deepest of pain. So the pain doesn't have to be physical or mental, or but sometimes it can be as radical as spending time with your children.
Hmm.
When the life gives you a pause button that, hey, what's happening? So when this started taking place, though I have been a follower in its own way of Deepak Chopra and some other mighty gurus who always says that take your time because the universe is never in a rush. If it is in a rush, you will crash.
Hmm.
But we as humans, we have forgotten that specific element. But in this world, wherein you are working so, I mean, you are used to that particular image of getting things done. Yes, it happened. Then what happened when you decided to slow down?
Hmm. Well, the first thing to say is that slowing down is a process. It takes time. I mean, we're all so impatient now that we often want to slow down fast, right? So people have their wake up call about being stuck in roadrunner mode, and they think to themselves, "Yeah, I need to slow down." So what do? Well, they sign up for a mindfulness course, and they run across the street to do some yoga. Then they rush home to cook a 4 course slow food meal, which is not the way
I
of
love
going
that.
about it, right? That's the fast way to slow down, and it doesn't work. It's short lived. The way to slow down is slowly, and it's often one step forward and one step back. We're also marinated in the culture of speed that I mean, I used the word earlier, addicted, and I think that's accurate. I mean, there are a lot of research shows that we are now physically addicted to the speed of our smartphones and the constant stimulation and distraction that they subject us to. We have the same withdrawal symptoms as a heroin addict has when you take away our smartphones. And I think that addiction goes beyond the body. I think it's emotional, it's philosophical, it's metaphysical, it's spiritual, that we are just so accustomed now for everything to be happening as fast as possible and all at the same time that when you take away that tsunami of busyness and speed and overwhelm, rather than rejoicing and saying, phew, I can take a breath now and a pause, we panic. We think, oh no, where's the stimulation? I need to get back on the fast train. Right. And so there's always that period of withdrawal symptoms when you come away from a fast forward lifestyle to one that is more balanced and more slow. You're going to knock up against inertia, right? You're going to knock up against bad habits, but with patience and discipline and imagination, you push through and you come out the other end. So for me, it was a process because when I had my wake up call about 1 minute bedtime stories, I was a card carrying type A, fast all the time person. And I didn't become the Dalai Lama 3 days later, right? It doesn't work that way, right? I'm still not the Dalai Lama, but I'm a lot closer to his inner calm than I was, all those years ago. But for me, it was a process of running little pilot projects, experiments, saying to myself, this week, I'm going to, leave the office at, when the work is done instead of staying there to try and impress the boss, or I'm going to turn off my phone 3 hours, 2 hours before bedtime, or, just playing around with little changes you can make and then seeing at the end of the week how they played out. Did it work? Could I tweak that a little bit? So there are all those little steps you can take, but I think there's a deeper question to be reckoned with here. And I think you have to get there, you need to slow down, right? Because one of the things that we sacrifice on the altar of speed is reflection. A fast culture is based on reaction, and reaction is useful sometimes, but it's not always the best policy. Sometimes you need to slow down, go deep, right? Fast is superficial, it touches the surface. Slow allows you to go down deep to the core, gets you to the heart of the matter. And what do you find at the heart of the matter? You find those big, sticky questions like, who am I? What is my purpose here? Am I living the right life for me? And you have to wrestle with those questions in order to design a life worthy of the name. And another way of saying a life worthy of the name is to say a slower life, right? A life where you're actually living each moment rather than racing through it. But to get there, you have to go through a period of slow reflection, of introspection, of letting your mind wander, of being uncomfortable in that space of not knowing. See, we live in a society now where everything is mapped out in numbers, it's metrics, it's plotted on a graph, it's show me the money. But actually, the richest, most fertile, most thrilling experiences often occur in those blurry liminal spaces between knowing and not knowing. And if we allow ourselves to float and hang and suspend in those in between spaces, those interstitial moments, that's when the music and the magic can happen. The trouble is, in our fast forward, results oriented culture, we get into one of those moments where we don't know exactly what to do and how quickly to do it. What do? We rush to get to the next thing. What you need to do in that moment is slow down, live with the discomfort, fall through it, and you'll come out the other side, because you will have regained that profoundly human experience of re-encountering yourself, right? This is something I often say to people. People say, I'm going so fast. And I say, well, why are you going so fast? They say, well, it's my boss, it's the work, it's my phone. Actually, very often it's us. We are the engines, the motors of our own acceleration. We are pushing ourselves to go faster, to be busier, to reach for our phone. We're in the shower, to just constantly, right? It's so often it's coming from within. And the only way you can deal with what's going wrong within is to slow down and go inside, go deep.
Wonderful. In fact, this raises so many points. In fact, this morning I got a clip from on WhatsApp from one of my friend, wherein they had marked about the time that we have been spending, whether it's with family or friends or
Mm,
just reading, and how it just goes on. That trajectory has changed in such a way that now the mobile or the phones have taken the maximum number of times. The family has taken a much
yeah.
less time. With friends, has again, that word has become so superficial. Is that yes, we are having connections, but are we really having some good deep relationships?
Yes, exactly. We're more connected electronically than we ever have been in history, and yet we're in the midst of a global pandemic of loneliness, because those connections are not real connections. They're specious, they're superficial, they're tenuous. They're not real. They're not deep. They're shallow.
That's so true. Because just now, in fact, when you were talking about that, I remember having a talk with this amazing human, wherein he talks about there is loneliness and there is aloneness,
Mm.
and we have now mixed up both of them together. But being alone is totally different from being lonely.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean,
And
yeah. There's a real joy in solitude, partly because it allows you to close out the sound and fury of modern life and to go deep, to go inside, to be with yourself, to listen to the whisperings of your own heart. That's when you do it, is in moments of solitude. Loneliness is very different, as you say. Loneliness is when you actually need real human connection, but it's not there. And that hurts. That's bad for us. It's bad for our health. It's bad for our spirit. It's bad for us up and down the scale.
I think so. That also gets back to the thing of the mental health issues, which has been a prevalent epidemic currently happening around uh, North America. I don't know much about Europe, but
Same here.
UK,
It's the
yeah,
same
UK.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, places like India and upcoming where people are just pushed, and at times you just lose the sense of your own self. But there was another one which just came to my attention when you were talking about it, is that we have made our life to exist, not to live.
Mhm.
And I always say that life is for living, not for existing.
Yeah. I put it slightly differently. I say we've created a world where we're just surviving rather than living. Yeah, which is another way of saying the same thing. And
Yeah.
I think that's true. We are going through the motions. I think many people have the sense. I mean, let's back up a little bit. We're living in a time of extraordinary plenty and abundance. We should be immensely healthy and happy, but we're not, right? I think because a lot of us are stuck in fast forward. We are in autopilot. We're not living the right lives for us. We're living other people's scripts. We're following other people's expectations because we never slow down long enough to ask, what matters to me? What really counts? What do I stand for? How do I want to go out and move through the world? How do I want to leave the world a different place? What do I bring to the party? We don't ask those big questions. We just think, how do I get this next promotion, right? Or how do I buy that next car? Or how do I get this next holiday? Or how do I lose 5 pounds? It's all the kind of superficial stuff rather than, and then there we are again. It's that split, fast, superficial, slow, deep. And when you get stuck in that fast rut, everything is superficial, and superficial is not good for us. That's not what we're here to be. We're human doings these days rather than human beings.
Beautiful. I love that. Human doings. But here, Carl, there another question which comes up is that when people think about slowing down, at times, what their stories, as you mentioned the word, is that you're lazy.
Yeah.
And that would have come to you because since you are the evangelist of slowing down, okay, people are said. So what I know, laziness to me is an attribute of procrastination, a fear of getting some things done, and that's the reason you shy away. But slowing down. So, to the listeners, what would you talk about laziness and slowing down?
Well, the whole kind of slow revolution is not about doing everything slowly, right? Or missing deadlines. I mean, I'm not an extremist of slowness. I love speed, right? Faster is often better. We all know that. The key here to unlocking this whole slow movement is about doing things at the right speed. That musicians talk about the tempo giusto, the right piece of tempo for each piece of music, and that kind of gets at what slow is about. It's about knowing that sometimes you got to go fast, but other times you need to slow things down. If you go deeper, I think slow is a mindset. It's quality over quantity. It's being present and in the moment. It's doing one thing at a time. Do you remember the days when we used to do that? Ultimately, slow is about doing everything not as fast as possible, but as well as possible, which is a really simple idea, but an immensely powerful and revolutionary one. Because once you arrive at each moment thinking, how can I get through this as fast as possible, but how can I make the most of this moment here now? That is a game changer, right? That's going to change and improve every aspect of your life, from the work to the home to the gym to everything in between, right? Is if you arrive at the moment thinking, not how can I get through this quickly, but how can I go deep here? How can I be here fully in this moment? And that's kind of what slow with a capital S means to me. It's about, you kind of touched on this at the beginning when you mentioned that clip you were sent in the WhatsApp group about how we use our time. I mean, a big part of slow is about slowing down and thinking and identifying and pinpointing what really matters and letting everything else go and zeroing in on those things that really matter and giving them the time and attention that they deserve. And that's really, I mean, the simplest way to give someone advice on how to live a life well lived is that, right? Is to focus on what really matters and give those things the time and attention they deserve. The rest of it doesn't matter. Most of the stuff that's crammed into our schedules today, I guarantee it, you won't even remember it 6 weeks from now. It's not important. We pack our days with fluff and distraction, and we do it partly because we're afraid of empty time. We're afraid of being alone with our thoughts. We're afraid of FOMO. We're afraid of other people's judgment. None of that matters, right? None of that matters. And coming back to that clip about WhatsApp and how we use our time, I mean, nobody lies on their deathbed and looks back and thinks, I wish I'd spent more time at the office. Yeah. Or I wish I spent more time on social media. And yet those things are vacuuming up the vast majority of our time
Yes.
these days. And I think if you flip the script a little bit when you talk about time and pace and you start asking those bigger questions, what really matters? What, when I'm on my deathbed looking back, do I want to think, yeah, I put my time in that and it was a worthy investment? You start asking those questions, and the here and now, where you are in your life today, changes, right? You start to rotate it and see it from the side. You think, okay, well, that isn't so important. I can let that go, but this really means something to me. I need to be doubling down and putting my chips more on this side of my life and that kind of thing. So I think those are some of the steps, I think, that lead to a life that we'd all want to live, right?
But again, as you mentioned, the word superficial, it's those big shiny objects which we run after without realizing it's nothing but fluff and glossiness. It's just the shine, but nothing is there behind that veneer. In fact, when you mentioned about dying bed, I had read this just reread the book Five Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware.
Oh, yes, yes, yeah, I know it. Yeah.
It's such a beautiful book, and then it's such. I mean, when people, I would say that a lot of people should read that book because it gives a stark, and like the way you put it as one of the elements that I heard in this one was being aware. People have forgotten the power of now.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've been a big follower of Eckhart Tolle, and wherein he talks about being present in whatever you're doing. And there's this amazing connection which I've got on LinkedIn also. She also talks about peace. Peace is when you're in that moment,
Mhm.
rather than thinking, because if you are fast, why are we doing fast, or why are we speeding up things, to be a better word? Because we are anxious. We are, what if we don't reach the finish line? What? But in the process, we forget the beauty of now.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts now? When I'm talking about power of now, what's your thoughts about being present and your concept about slowing down?
I think that being present, or the power of now, or whatever formula of words you want to give it, is it's the other side of the same coin from slow. I think the two go hand in hand. In fact, to me, when you talk about slow in the greater sense of the word with the capital S, it's all about presence. It's about being fully in the moment. It's about giving the time and attention to each moment, each task, each person that those things deserve and demand. And people often say to me, it's funny, they say, well, I'd love to slow down, but I can't slow down, right? Because life will pass
Mm.
me by. But actually, life is what's happening right here, right now. And the only way to make the most of it is to slow down and be present, be there fully in the moment. So those two things, slow and presence, for me, just go hand in hand. And they're two sides of the same coin. That you cannot be present unless you slow down, and you can't really slow down unless you're present. If you're just taking down the speed a little bit, but your head's still in a million places, that's not really slowing down. That's window dressing. That's slow washing. Let's call it. Um, but if you're genuinely slow, you're always going to be in the moment. And that's something we've lost, I think, especially in this last 20 years with the, the conquest of the smartphone and social media everywhere, is we've lost the art of the moment, of actually living fully in the now. And that's such a simple thing, right? It doesn't cost anything to live in the now, right? You don't have to download it from Amazon or pay a coach to help you. We can all do it, right? People have been doing it for thousands of years for free. It's a change of paradigm. It's a change of mindset. It's a changing the chip in your head and saying, what, I'm going to approach each moment with a different spirit, a spirit that says, I've got this moment here now. I'll never have this moment again. Why spoil it by trying to be in several other moments at the same time, or worrying about the moment that's just gone by or the one that might be coming tomorrow? Let's just go all in on this moment here now. That's how you light things up.
Well, guys, that's profound, and I will be putting out Carl's connections on my comments, as well as I will be putting out his TED talks, the clips that you can have on here onto it. But when you talk about what's been happening, Carl, and especially, in fact, just some time back, I was talking to an acquaintance on LinkedIn about AI, wherein they, with out of good spirit, yeah, these are the main tools that you can use to speed up things.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one thought which just hit me was, what happens to the creativity? Oh, you're getting creative with the prompts that you're using, but what really happens with the creativity? Now, I dabble in painting. The type that I do when I'm doing the painting, it takes me to a different space, a different level. Or the
Mm-hmm.
time that you have been also writing books. So when you're writing a book, and this big came out when the onslaught of Chat GPT and Claude and Gemini came in. I had to go through this entire book again, so that there was no sense that, what, it would have been assisted by.
Yeah.
Because see, sometimes your own creative juices gets wrung out. You feel you want to take a shortcut method, and create something which is sound looking more compelling, more powerful, and you use that particular thing. But in the process, you are stifling your own self.
Yeah, I think there is a risk there that, I mean, I use AI, but I use it very much as a wingman. So I don't go to the empty page, the blank page, and ask AI to fill it for me. I do the first heavy lifting at the start. And I also make sure that I take a lot of time for that slow thinking, what's I call it, that kind of woolly, open-ended, going for long walks, letting my mind drift here and there, entering that other space, to use your phrase, right? I think that's what humans bring to the table, right? And we don't want to lose that muscle or that reflex, that skill, by getting lazy in a bad way and just
That's so true.
outsourcing it at every stage to AI. I think you need to use AI in a very mindful and thoughtful way. I think there are certain particular tasks it's very good at. It can be good at, collating and pulling together data that you can then parse and play with and so on. It can also be a useful sounding board if if you haven't got another human being around and you've got an idea, you can, bounce it off AI. But you always need to make sure that as a human being, you are carving out those moments of slowness, right? Where you either go away from the computer and take the 3 suggestions from AI and let them play in your mind for a couple of days, or you're got a blank page and you take time, however long it takes to start filling up that page without leaning on AI right from the start. So I think it's going to take discipline because the temptation is great. It's going to be there. It's going to become even more intense as
Yeah,
AI gets quicker and better. But I think if we don't want to make ourselves obsolete or lead really boring lives, ultimately, I think we need to make sure that we keep, it's like exercising. You need to keep those muscles firing, right? Keep the brain agile, fit, and nimble. And to do that, you need to work it. And to work the human brain and get the most from it, you have to slow down. So I think of AI as, it could, it's how we use it, right? In so many ways, I think technology is neutral. It's how we put it into effect. And no doubt there'll be people out there who are, in fact, I know there are people who've just kind of given up on the great extent of just doing it all through AI. I don't think that's where the future lies, either for us as human beings or for those people who are, using it in that way at the moment. I think that's probably that's a short-term win, and they'll start, paying a price in different kinds of ways later on.
of course. Let's go back to, I mean, we can talk about AI and the way
Mm.
our quality of life can be, how it can be changed, or for the better or for the worse. But for the listeners who have been hearing so far, and this will be a question which would have come to you time and again, is that if you are asked around 3 to 5 steps about how to slow down,
Mhm.
how to mindfully, as you mentioned, it, in 3 days you did not become from Carl to
Yeah.
Dalai Lama.
But I can still give you some quick tips to get started. Right?
Quick
Quick tips to
tips,
slow
hot
down. Yeah.
tips.
Sure, that's easy. I'll give you 5. The first is picking up on something I said earlier, do less, right? We're chronically trying to do too many things. So every day, look at your schedule for the day or the week, pinpoint the things that are not that important, the least important, and let them go. Let one thing go a day and just open up more time and oxygen for the things that really matter. That will help you slow down. Number 2, use the off button on your phone. Turn off notifications so that you decide when you're interrupted. Wherever possible, get screens out of your line of sight, right? We know that even just having a phone visible on the table raises our blood pressure, causes us to be distracted, makes it harder for us to be in the moment. So, put your phone in your pocket. Don't have it on the table during dinner or meetings. Get it out of sight. Turn off notifications. Turn it off whenever possible. That's number 2. Number 3 is integrate, build some kind of slow ritual into your daily practice, right? Daily schedule. So that could be anything from, you do painting, I do a bit of sketching. It could be reading poetry or yoga or anything that just inoculates you, that sort of vaccinates you against the virus of hurry. Build it into your schedule. Doesn't have to be 4 hours. It can be 4 minutes some days, right? But just in there to help you find that slower, lower groove and rhythm. Number 4, go out into Mother Nature. Yeah, we know studies really clear on this. Spending time in green spaces slows us down. It just decompresses us physically, brings us more into the moment. And that, obviously a 4-hour hike in the Rocky Mountains, great. We can't all do that every day, but most of us go outside to our backyard or to a park and, walk in the grass or sit against a tree or whatever. Just get into green space. That makes a big difference. And then the final one is a little bit outside the box here. And it takes a bit of explanation. And it's this: do something for other people. Be of service to others. Because one of the things about speed is that it's selfish. It cuts us off from other people, a fast life, and it makes us obsessed with our own to-do list, our own career progress, our own tunnel vision, right? Once you slow down, you widen the lens. You start to reconnect with other people. And there's a great proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Go together.
And I think that's an important thread to pull on here in the slow movement, because often we find ourselves talking about slow through a very individual lens. This is going to make me happier, healthier, more productive, more creative, all that great stuff that we all want. Wonderful. But that shouldn't be the end point. I think that slowing down really needs to go the furthest down the line, which is to reconnect us with something bigger than ourselves. And that, for most of us, is community, right? So getting outside your own self-serving pursuits and helping others, right? And that's a wonderful way to connect with other human beings, which slows you down because human relationships are slow, but it also takes you out of the linear, full speed ahead selfishness of fast living. So how do I round that tip out? The final one: be of service. Volunteer in a soup kitchen, go work in a local charity shop, read books to the blind, go spend time talking to prisoners in a local, whatever it is, something that, or pick up litter in your neighborhood, just something where you're giving back. And there's something about the act of giving back, of being of service, that slows you down. It just does. And it also nourishes you, lifts your spirits, and makes you the best version of yourself. So there are 5 tips to get the slow ball rolling.
Amazing. So guys, I always talk about gold nuggets, but I believe this is a gold mine, because there is so many elements which can make you live a more fruitful life. Challenges will be there. There would be at times breaking through your own limitations or your own barriers, but that doesn't mean that you got to put the effort will be required, but pausing and working slowly towards your goal, being present, is just a sense of wonderment. Carl, so with this, I would like to conclude our talk. It has been absolutely, at least I don't know who would be listening to this, but for me, it has been an eye opener. It has been just fantastic. And in fact, just reinforced a lot of my own philosophies that I am a long distance runner. So I get my meditative space at one point of time. Once I reach a certain point and I know I have to slow down and just enjoy, whether it is the looking at the nature or just being thankful to my own body or being thankful to the environment that I'm able to run, etc. Or maybe it is just sitting and writing some uh, poetries, or not poetries, but I'm a writer, so I tend to write, or even having the podcast, because these are the moments where I realize the power that when I in this particular space, I am with somebody else going through their journey, and that gives me the power of pause, the power of being slow. And this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so very much for your space and time. And I'll just stop the record.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, and I've learned some things too. Thank you.